Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories now. We told you the war against corruption extends to the armed forces. President Ahmadu Buhari orders EFCC to investigate misconduct allegations against serving and retired officers. Soldiers serving at the war front against insurgency in the northeast receive word of encouragement from the president himself as their slain comrades are honored. Former President Obasanjo declares Biafra secession a dead issue, urges government to address problems of the southeast. An experimental drug trial in France goes awry, leaving one man dead and 5 others hospitalized. Well, here are some eyewitness photos that you sent to our portal. We'll begin with this photo sent in from Victoria Island in Lagos. It shows this diesel power generating set discharging carbon monoxide into the air. Our eyewitness reporter calls on the state authorities to stop indiscriminate abuse of the environment. Our next photo was sent in from Ekwe community in Edo State. It shows this dilapidated school building. Our eyewitness reporter calls on the state authorities to renovate the premises, especially the classroom corridor. And this next photo was sent in from Kafanchang area in Kaduna State. It shows this waterfall, which our eyewitness reporter suggests should be transformed into a tourist attraction, thereby generating more internally generated revenue for the state. And finally is this photo sent in from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. It shows this National Youth Service Corps member holding what he describes as a drone prototype, which he created. He calls on the federal government to invest more in schools of technology.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
We do appreciate those pictures you sent in, as we ask that you keep them coming. President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the State Anti-Graft Agency, the EFCC, to further investigate alleged misconduct established against some retired and serving officers of the Nigerian Air Force and the Nigerian Army. Well, this directive by the President follows the recommendation of the committee established to audit the procurement of arms and equipment in the armed forces and defense sector from 2007 to 2015. We're now being joined on the news at 10 by retired Brigadier General Olusegun Ajana to look at this Armed Forces Day remembrance and many other issues that we see. Let's begin with Mr. President's declaration asking the EFCC to investigate some of the serving officers of the Army and some that have retired. What's your first impression when it comes to this?
My first impression is the fact that a lot of things have gone wrong, particularly under the previous regime. And obviously, when you look at arms procurement and the processes that are involved, obviously, some members of the armed forces must have been involved in the procedure that ought to have taken place. Not for anything that is supposed to be personally beneficial, but to ensure that the correct equipment and of right specifications are purchased. And from that point of view, definitely, some of them might have been involved. But that notwithstanding, given the present revelation of the mismanagement of funds meant for procurement of arms, if any of them had gotten his fingers involved in that, definitely, I think he needs to be called to question and be asked so that we can have a clear and clean plate and start on a fresh footing. So that, because equipment is the life of the force. Sometimes last year we were embarrassed. A lot of us that were outside the force, retired people, were embarrassed when we got news that soldiers were deserting the front, soldiers were refusing orders to fight, and all sorts of things. Definitely a lot of things had gone wrong. And if probing some of the personnel of the armed forces to get to the root of this is going to produce the answer, oh,
You're in support of
it
that?
It should be done. Yes, it should be done. Retired or serving, if you are involved in it and you got your fingers into money that you shouldn't have done, you should pay for it.
Interesting. Let's look at some other security challenges Nigeria is currently facing, top of which is Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast. Do you think that the military of today is as motivated as it was back then, remembering what it used to be for the military? You were a part of that.
That's right. The military that I served in and that I enjoyed for about 3 decades was well motivated and there to produce results. Obviously, I wouldn't have expected a sharp change, given the fact that you do not have a total removal of officers and then an input of a new set. It's a matter of gradual phasing out, sort of, in the forces. But at the moment, members of the force are better paid than they were before. Better paid. And I believe better motivated. Motivation is not only on pay. It also depends on what they have to use as the means of delivering the services. So, and you cannot talk of morale totally without thinking of the armed forces equipments. The equipment has to be there. And of course, I should also say this, nobody prays for war. But the best time to prepare for war is during peace.
Interesting. Now, 50 years after the Civil War, there are still agitations for regional recognition in some parts of the country. How best do you suggest that the military, in order to be forthright, tackles this issue of agitation, some of which we've seen across the country?
Agitation born out of maybe political considerations. Let me say this to start with. No nation survives 2 civil wars. Get that clear. Anywhere in the world. No nation survives 2 civil wars. And I believe those who are agitating for Biafra at the moment, first, when you look at the age group, majority of them, quite a lot of them who may think that they are fairly elderly and they know what they're talking about, were probably babies when we finished this Nigerian Civil War. And a large number of them might have been misinformed about the cause and the process and everything that happened during the Civil War. So I think a lot of misinformation is involved in the present agitation. That notwithstanding, I believe that those who probably might have spearheaded it probably took their grouse from political dissatisfaction in one way or the other. But I think there is need to educate the people. In fact, the Nigerian Civil War should become part of the subject we should teach in schools, in the history classes, so that people can know and in fact appreciate the fact that it is very important that all the things that caused that civil war, we try to do away with it.
Brigadier General Olusegun Ajana, I want to thank you so much indeed for your time and your thoughts here on the news at 10.
Thank you.
We're going to take you straight to our Abuja studios where Gloria Omezweke is sitting by to take us through the latest stories coming from your end. Gloria, it's over to you now.
Hello, Gimba. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the nation's capital. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says the issue of Biafra succession is dead and efforts by agitators to resurrect it is a sign of frustration that government at all levels should work to address. According to Chief Obasanjo, the recent agitations by pro-Biafra groups in the southeast is only a cry for recognition and amelioration of economic problems facing the region. He advised governments to provide education and employment for the youths in the region. The forum is the first of the series of discussions to address some national issues which made headlines in recent times. Precisely, this session with former President Olusegun Obasanjo deliberated on the topic Nigeria and the Biafra agitation. Delivering his keynote address, the former president says Biafra agitation for secession is dead.
Biafra as a secession issue is dead, and nobody should follow that way. It can again only lead to disaster. But I see this resurgent Biafra agitation not for secession or creation of an independent entity from Nigeria, but as a cry for attention, amelioration, and improvement of socio-economic conditions and situation, especially of the youth in Nigeria in general, but in the Southeast in particular.
Some panelists at the event, however, disagree with the former president.
I'm also the idea that Biafra is dead. I also think that we named it was the Bible of Biafra, that's what we changed the name. The state, Biafra as a nation may be dead, but the idea behind it will never die.
The problems are on both sides, for those who push for the agitation of Biafra and those who ridicule the agitation of Biafra. And I don't think we should address it in terms of ridicule or condemnation, but in the sense of coming to terms with Biafra.
Meanwhile, both the former president and other panelists believe that the government has not done enough to resolve issues leading to such agitations. They want government at all levels to provide employment. Organizers of this dialogue say they hope to bring representatives of the current government and leaders of the pro-Biafra agitators for discussion in their subsequent debates.
Civil war.
Sir Ahmadu Bello was the first premier of northern Nigeria from 1954 to 1966. He was assassinated on the 15th of January 1966, along with other prominent Nigerians, including Sir Tafawa Balewa, Ladoke Akintola, and Festus Okotie-Eboh. The action led to the Civil War, which lasted from 1967 to 1970. Many years later, northern leaders have gathered in Kaduna to remember the late premier, seen not just as a political figure, but also a spiritual leader, as he was also the Sardauna of Sokoto.
The story of Nigeria is incomplete without the mention of certain events like the Aba Women Riot of 1929, the introduction of the currency in 1959, the independence of 1960, and the Civil War, which threatened to split the nation between 1967 and 1970. Sadly, the war that claimed millions of lives began with the loss of prominent Nigerians. Prime Minister Sir Tafawa Balewa, Premier of the Western Region Ladoke Akintola, and the Premier of the Northern Region Sir Ahmadu Bello, who is being celebrated here in Kaduna State. Elder statesmen, governors and traditional rulers present take turns to extol the late Premier.
On this occasion, we are remembering history. The purpose of history is to know the past in order to adjust the present and plan for the future. We have to revisit the past to know what the past was so that we may adjust the present and plan our future. Yes, Sardauna, Sir Ahmadu Bello of Sokoto, Sir Ahmadu Bello of Northern Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello of Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello of Africa, Sir Ahmadu Bello of the world.
Adding voice is President Muhammadu Buhari, represented by the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai. The president urges leaders to strive to be as incorruptible as Ahmadu Bello was.
He did as he said and did not say one thing and did another. Ahmadu Bello represented the essence of truly transformational leadership. I urge all of us with public leadership responsibilities to learn the lessons from the events of today. And what are these lessons? The president asked. When you lead with honesty and integrity in the service of humanity, the society never forgets you. Even if you are killed, and even if you leave no wealth behind, may the Almighty Allah forgive all our patriots like Sir Ahmadu Bello, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Brigadier Memalari, and all the others, Kur Mohammed and so on, that died in the honest service of our country 50 years ago.
Although the war ended on the 15th of January 1970, the scars of the period still lingers. How we as a nation rise from the lessons learned from the lives of heroes like Sir Ahmadu Bello will determine if we truly understand what they died for.
The troops from the 120 Task Force Battalion of the Nigerian Army have repelled an attack by Boko Haram militants in Yobe State. It was gathered that the militants attacked the army base stationed in Goniri town in Gujba local government area at about 4 a.m. but were sent fleeing by soldiers who engaged them in a gun battle. The incident comes a day after the Interior Minister led a delegation to Yobe State to assess the extent of destruction by Boko Haram militants. Scores of the militants were said to have been killed in the encounter, which lasted several hours, with many of the residents reportedly fleeing the violence. One of them told our correspondent in the state that they heard heavy gunshots and explosions and had to run for safety, adding that the battle continued into the early hours of today. Goniri is one of the communities recently recaptured by security forces who are currently working to clear the town and other surrounding communities preparatory to the return of the residents who are spread in IDP camps in Yobe and Borno states. Well, that's it from Abuja. It's back to you, Gimbar.
Brilliant. Gloria Mezweke from our Abuja studio. And when the news at 10 returns, the Supreme Court upholds the election of Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom in the 2015 polls. Do join us again.